Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley, Gorilla Girl filmmaker, lunar goddess, and cinephile.
Hey y'all, this is your guest ghost host Lila Kay. I'm coming at you from the Mile High to bring you chills and thrills.
And I'm your co-host John Thomas, ghost hunter, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all you brain-craving creatures out there? In today's episode, we'll be diving head first into zombies. Where did zombies come from, and are they real? Do you think you would survive a zombie apocalypse? Join us and our special returning guest to find out.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more. Head first, bottom, psh.
It always makes me excited to hear the different intros. Okay, we're talking about zombies. What's she gonna say? And then it's
Right.
that was...
Actually, John wrote the head first.
I always end up doing that. Sometimes she changes them, sometimes she doesn't.
He gave me a pun. I love puns.
Yes.
I like it. Okay, sorry.
Using your brains.
He's using his
Yes.
brain. All right, bring us back.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Like Ashley said, we have a special returning guest. We have Bodie coming back with us today. Thank you. Hi, Bodie.
Hello there. Happy to be here in the midst of the zombie apocalypse. Wouldn't choose a better bunker bunch.
I like that. The Bunker Bunch.
The bunker bunch to be with. Yeah, we're a pretty good crew, but I'm not sure if any of us are actually savvy enough to not die.
At least for a while, yeah.
I think I would be. I don't know, but you're up north. You're probably super prepper.
You know, I just repaired my first pair of snow boots, so I'm feeling confident that I could survive. You got to in this climate. Things are serious up here, so.
We also have our awesome ghost host, Lila. Hello, Lila.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. So everybody knows zombies. Not my favorite topic. Not.
No.
Genre, all of it. I wake up screaming in the middle of the night and punching things, and it's just not good for anybody if I watch too many zombie flicks. I like them.
What is it about zombies that scares you the most? Ghosts you can handle to an extent, demons, all that good stuff, but zombies is where you draw the line?
Apparently. And that's where my subconscious draws the line. So I feel like I'd have to talk to a psychiatrist to figure out where that fear comes from. Because, like I said, I could watch the movies and I'm like, wow, that was a fucking awesome movie. Yeah. But then the nightmares are insanely real and violent, and I wake up with my heart racing 50 miles, an hour, or maybe it's 500 miles an hour, and it's just, I don't know. Something about it gets to my subconscious.
Yeah, well, I mean, good for you. You still go there. You're not one of us jaded, hardened movie viewers who just checks out. You get to experience it.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to experience it. I would like my brains intact and my organs inside my body with the cavity closed.
Yeah.
Well,
Wouldn't
careful,
we all,
what you ask for.
Careful
It's
with
too
you.
much sometimes.
So I do have a little challenge then for you because, okay, as you know, Ashley, Lila and I, and the poster behind me, we love Anna and the Apocalypse. But there's something it's Disney. You should watch the Disney Zombies musical and see if that gives you nightmares. I just want to see.
I'll let you know. I just watched the short that Bodie here made, the zombie short that he made this afternoon.
yes.
He sent it over and I watched it and I thought it was fun.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil it for people, but as soon as it started kicking off and they're starting a dance, I'm like, but what happens when the music stops? You did not disappoint, Bodie. You did not
Right.
disappoint.
Yes.
Well, it's in the name. It's called Zomedy, so spoilers. It's a zombie comedy, and but it has to deliver. I mean, if it's a zombie movie, you got to have some gore in there, or at least insinuated.
Absolutely.
But I think I went campy. But the question is like, what are the rules in zombie movies? I find the ones that are much scarier are the ones that take it very seriously, and I can believe it. They're slow. And you feel like you could outrun all of them, and they're really stupid. And
well, I think, and I'm going to say this, and I understand it's going to sound really like what, but like I think the original zombie movies very much played into the origin of zombies to begin with. So that's why we see the slow, kind of staggering, brain dead, corpses, because where they originated from, where the concept came from, was very much what it stayed true to. I think when we deviated was probably in the, early 2000s? Was it Dawn of the Dead, where they're in the mall and the zombies are like on steroids and they're moving?
They can run. Yeah,
yes. Insanely fast. Yes. And that freaked me out. Like when the movies or in the movie, I went to watch it in theater, and when the zombie just like took off at this frightening fast speed, I was like, what the fuck? That's not a zombie. And, I think that really got to me. Maybe that's where my fear first came in.
I don't blame you, because even just seeing the preview for that scared the shit out of me. So yeah.
Oh, that's what I love about a zombie movie is when they go there, and that
exactly.
And 28 Days Later, when you feel like all the scariest stuff about human beings turned up to 11, and rather than these shambolic, like satirical. But those fun zombie movies have their place, like Shaun of the Dead. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd say my two favorites are Shaun of the Dead and 28 Days Later. They're apples and oranges, but they're both, instant classics.
Yes, definitely.
I disagree. I watched 28 Days Later, and I didn't like it. I thought it was boring, personally. Shaun of the Dead, though, I'll agree on that one. That one's great. I love a good comedy, and mixing comedy and gore is like, that's up my alley. That's perfect. But I didn't care for 28 Days Later that much.
Oh, well, you got to elaborate. I mean, you can't just drop that bomb. What is it?
I don't
is
know.
It boring to you?
I couldn't personally get invested in it. I didn't care for the story, but that's just me. I'm
when
not
did
going to
you
slander
watch it?
A film.
Like how young were you a kid when you first saw it?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's
young.
slow because it's like a British movie, so it's kind of austere, but it's also, I don't know, that one was the nightmare one for me, for sure.
Who was 28 Days Later? Who was the lead? Was that Cillian? Who was that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That was...
Cillian Murphy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenally done movie in terms of acting. I do think the pacing was a bit slow, but I think you just have to... Pacing is subjective. That's, pun intended, everybody's got a different taste. So it's where they want, especially when it comes to horror, pacing is just very subjective, what people like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't a fan the first time I watched it, but then I watched it again, and I'm like, all right, I can get behind this. That was actually pretty good.
Well, I'll tell y'all what. I'll watch it again sometime, and I'll give an update on my new opinion of it, and maybe it's changed, but I was not a fan of it watching it around.
Yeah. Well, the thing that occurred to me when I was taking notes, of course, very studious with my podcasting, is I went back and I thought, okay, two things about that movie that messed with me. When I first watched it, that scene where you first see the zombies, he like enters a church, I think, and there's a pile of dead bodies and there's all these zombies eating them. And then when they see him, they get up and chase after him. And so that begs the question, like, what's the logic? Like, why would a zombie who's got a whole like room full of easy food in front of its mouth that it's already eating get up and chase after like the living prey? So you got to get into what's that about?
I think it's what you said, though. I think it's what you said, prey. So like zombies, it's defining what is a zombie, because if a zombie is a predator, a lot of the research I was doing is like zombie like infections that are real in this world are parasites, and they all have a commonality where it's trying to spread. the parasitic infection. So versus eat. So if you have a parasite that's infecting humans and it's like, yeah, I've got my whole feast here. Well, my feast is laying there. And so it's not going to spread my infection anymore. It stays in that room. But if I have something running, it's like, oh, that's going to spread my infection. So maybe there's something in terms of that, why zombies chase the live ones versus just eat the dead bodies, because it's like this will spread more avenues for spreading the parasitic infection, which is what a parasite does. It wants to spread amongst many hosts. So maybe that's why.
Well, also, while we're talking about predator versus prey, there's also that scavenger option. So when we're seeing, like, in films and in pop culture, these zombies pulling apart already dead prey, we see that in real life with, like, different birds and different species like that, where they pick and choose what they're going to do. So we have our scavengers, like our vultures, that are going to go after something that they don't really have to work hard for to conserve their energy, versus if we have a predator, that uses up a lot more energy and a lot more time to go after something that is actively trying to get away from you. So I think that that's part of it as well.
Right. And then one more big plot hole.
Uh-oh.
Okay, a drop of blood like falls into a guy's eye, and like less than a minute later, he turns into a zombie, right? Or the guy gets bit, and less than a minute later, he turns into a zombie. So how are there dead bodies on the floor if you get bit by a zombie and a minute later you're a zombie? So, I mean, like, the only dead bodies we ever have are going to be people who died from other causes, and how likely is that in a zombie apocalypse? Sorry for ruining the movie.
No, that's good point, though. I mean, really, because
I think too much about these things is the answer to the question.
Well, I think a body can only, like, the host, because it still has to have a host, right? Like, to take over its body functions. And so a host can only live or operate like a computer up to a certain point. So if the infection has run its course, or you've damaged enough of the body so that the host can no longer function even with the parasite controlling it, I could see why you would have a bunch of dead bodies on the floor. So for humans, if that's the host, that would be like we've seen with the rules of horror movies, you know, severing the brainstem. If you've got no heart, there's like nothing in there to pump that infection through to keep that, parasite taking over the host, that controlling the host.
Well, the heart doesn't have anything to do with the classic, zombie rules.
No,
right?
I'm not talking about the classic. I'm just talking about if we see dead bodies on the floor, what do zombies go for? They're eating through the cavity, the torso. What's in there? Those are organs. What are the two main things that kind of control our body movement? Our body, it's our spinal cord, our heart, our brains. So if they go and chomp on someone's brains and do enough damage, probably they're not going to be chasing down other people. I was just going pure scientific medical. What do we require at a basic function to keep going? We know humans can stay alive while technically being brain dead. So if you have a parasite come in and take over your body, well, okay, you could stay alive and not be a dead body on the floor. But if you have nothing to pump the infection through your body, i.e. your heart, that's also, it's a thing that's needed. So I don't know. I'm just going off of what you said. Filling in the plot hole.
I love it. You're going to be if I ever get to make a zombie movie, or the next one I make, you're going to be a consultant. You guys are coming on to get the science right, and so that it's as scary as possible.
You know, the irony. There is an irony in that I, of all people, am a zombie consultant.
Absolutely.
Like, this is how they work, guys, but I fucking hate them.
Well, what's interesting is that zombies did not originally have this cannibalistic nature. And I'd love to get more into the origins. Like, I know film and pop culture is huge, but originally zombies were just described as sort of spirits or sort of ghosts still in, a human form without the cannibalistic nature. So I'm wondering when that started to come into play and how that got taken from the original context of zombies to what we see now. Does anyone have any information on that? Because I couldn't find cannibalistic origins, just more so the historical.
So if we go into the historical, that's what, Haitian and Africans, so it was the Kimbundu tribe, that it was the Nzumbe, so like our ghost of zombie. And then it kind of evolved to the voodoo influence with like the witch doctor creating the zombie-like slaves to be at their will to do whatever like vengeance they needed done.
Vengeance.
But then the evolution of the zombie, I think, man, I don't know, because I feel like it probably wasn't until George Romero that we really saw the creature zombie. And so I think that would be a George Romero question. Not that we can ask him rest in peace, but like someone has to have asked him, like, where did you get that concept from? Because I feel like he's the one that created the modern day zombie, right? The one where you're seeing the staggering body burns and eating other people. So I don't know. Maybe it's just going off of people's fear.
Yeah, that the creation of the quote-unquote modern zombie did start in that time where we see like Frankenstein and Dracula, so people were very into these monster-like creatures. But even before then, in 1943, there was there were zombie films, and the first one was actually in 1932, which was White Zombie. So that was less of the modern take with the cannibalistic nature and sticking with more of those original roots where we're talking about the also quote-unquote zombie potions and things like that. But yeah, Night of the Living Dead in the 60s and Romero is where I can find that newer context. But then we have these... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I know you're...
No, go ahead. I'm excited.
Okay, so Romero, and this makes so much more sense now. Romero drew his inspiration for his zombies from actually a different type of creature. He actually drew his inspiration from Richard Matheson's novel, I Am Legend, and it was actually plague-induced vampires. And so he originally, before they were called zombies, he called them ghouls, which we've heard of ghouls. So that would make sense because vampires bite and they feed, and it's a plague spreading. So
yeah,
it was essentially a plague spreading vampire that he turned into zombies.
That's so wild.
And another little tidbit with that: nobody in the '68 version of Night of the Living Dead had ever called any of them zombies. It was more the fans applied that later on to what they were called, basically. So they were never called zombies in the film itself.
But in 1943, there was the film I Walked with a Zombie. So it started somewhere before then. But I think when we're talking about the newer creatures, then there's that little gap. But that's very interesting.
I think if we're talking historically, I think, zombies go all the way back to the OG of zombies, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Oh, gosh. He went there.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, you're not wrong.
Jesus was the first zombie.
Not something I would have thought about.
Yeah, man, first zombie. And he wore it well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Definitely.
The first cool zombie, Jesus Christ, superstar.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus Christ, super zombie. Yep.
Super zombie. He's not just a zombie, he's the super zombie.
Well, yeah.
Now, you know what's interesting? You said Jesus was resurrected 3 days later, right? So George Romero's first zombie rules, because he created the Worlds of Zombie rules for that people kind of followed for a while, was actually after you were bitten by a zombie, it took a few days before you were reanimated. So I wonder how many days. Was it 3?
Right.
They should have... Never mind. They, yeah,
He said never mind.
Never mind.
I want to know what that was, because you edited yourself. They should have what, Bodie?
Maybe they, we learned where to put the nails next time.
Oh my God.
You asked.
To make sure the future zombies wouldn't reanimate.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I mean, the 3 days, and then the interesting thing about the zombie movies is it's all about, like, what can you do that's novel? And I know I'm just coming at it from the movie perspective because that's, like, my whole life. But, like, it's like, which slider do you adjust? Does your zombie go from reanimating in 3 days to, like, 1 minute? Or do you change the how do they perceive the world? Some zombies don't seem to be able to tell that there's prey nearby, but some can like smell at a great distance, and all these little things that you can adjust. Kind of each director and each storyteller is like taken their own little, tried to carve out their novelty. Is there any novelty left, or is the zombie just dead?
You know, I feel like Land of the Dead with another George Romero, he started changing his own rules himself, because in that film he actually adjusted one of the sliders and he introduced the sentient zombie. By the end, the lead zombie that we had kind of been seeing throughout the film was aware. He actually took a pause, which we never see zombies just pause and look around. He actually paused and looked around and saw the zombies staggering and like saw that they were being mowed down. And he's the one that started putting the guns in other zombies' hands and showing them how to shoot. And I was like, oh shit, that's terrifying. This zombie is aware and this zombie is teaching. It was a very, like, that whole film was a satire, obviously, on, or not satire, I'm sorry, it was a commentary, social commentary on, you know, the masses and education and information and knowledge. But holy moly, that was startling.
Is this John Leguizamo?
Yeah, John Leguizamo. John Leguizamo. Nice.
Yeah.
By the way, I love John Leguizamo. I think
Yes.
he's underrated, awesome actor.
Yes.
For sure, for sure.
Speaking of sentient zombies, did you guys ever watch Warm Bodies?
No. Isn't that a romance?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a rom-com with a zombie.
Yes.
I was sitting here and I was trying to like remember the name of this
I
movie, and
have
I was
it,
like,
too.
I could picture it in my head, but as soon as you said sentient and like being aware, and I was like, that was it. That one was a good one.
I didn't watch it.
I mean, not scary, but it was funny. It was cute. I enjoyed it.
I was concerned, I'll be honest, I never watched it because I was concerned it was going to be like a Twilight but zombies. And I was like, no, I can't watch that trash. But if you say it's good, I will give it a go.
I think that's actually how they were trying to market it because of everything, but it really wasn't that bad. Like I told Lila when she brought it up, I actually do own that on Blu-ray. So yeah, it was one of the first Blu-rays that I bought. So
I'll give it a go. I'll try it just for you guys.
Gets the John seal of approval.
yeah, it's halfway there. It's a halfway seal, but yeah, it's not bad. It's worth a watch at least.
It's something I haven't seen since like the first time I watched it, but I remember really liking it. And I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It's interesting how many times they can revive the zombie idea and whether they
and
can
the
bring it
puns
back.
just keep coming.
I think there's so many sliders, so many ways you could adjust the sliders and still come up with a fresh take on the zombies. It's just a matter of having people willing to put that in. I think the difficult thing right now is that zombie films are very expensive. And unfortunately with the pandemic, those kind of things are kind of, budgets are tighter. It's a little harder to do unless you're Marvel and Disney. Then budgets are anything. But I don't see Marvel and Disney making zombie movies anytime soon. Not the kind we like. But or I should say you like.
They got like a zombie thing going on in their multiverse or whatever, you know. They're whatever it is, they want a piece of it.
They're edging over, but
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's possible. It's possible to have fresh takes on it. And even if you don't, like, that's the thing I've always kind of stood by. You don't need to change the rules, and you don't need to, like, have a new slider to have a really flipping amazing story within an existing world.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not recycling it. Yeah.
That's kind of the basis. Is it's like a Trojan horse, anyways, to put your story in. It's something to get, because horror is going to get all of us. It's going to get, the widest range of audience members, and if you get them the asses in the seats in the theater, and then you tell an amazing story, like, that's a really cool way to use any horror ideology, or it's just to bring your idea, bring that moral in there.
Right. Going with rules, and we keep mentioning the rules, but it reminds me of Zombieland when he's got his own set of rules with everything, which is fantastic. And yeah, I love those movies. Those are the best.
The no public restrooms really got me.
Yes.
Because public restrooms are scary enough. Yeah.
I actually do love Zombieland. I think it was classic because I feel like everybody could relate to Bill Murray. Like, that thought has never crossed our minds, right? Like, if a zombie apocalypse occurred, I'd just dress up like a zombie.
Right.
Unless they're Bodhi zombies, right, that you said that can smell other prey. In which case, well, unless you, like, lather yourself in zombie guts. And then can you get infected? I don't know.
I mean, they did that in an episode or so of The Walking Dead as well, where they were walking through the horde. They had to basically cover themselves up in dead gunk. So, yeah. And they were able to get through until one of the people was stupid and fucked it up. And, yeah. But
how can you not get infected that way? That's what I want to know. If your skin has tons of pores that are essentially another organ that can absorb, if you lather yourself in zombie blood, wouldn't you just get infected that way?
You would think, right?
Yeah, they have interesting rules, and then they try to, like, do storytelling magic around it. Like, everybody's going to be a zombie as soon as they die, or if they get bitten. But, it's interesting to try to figure out. That's why you need an Ashley on your side to, like, this doesn't make sense. No, let's go with human anatomy here. Because the more real it feels, like, that's the kind of stuff that gets me, is the stakes feel so elevated when all of those logic holes are filled. Random little thing here. So, Zack Snyder, Dawn of the Dead, is definitely one of the first that I saw that was mind-blowing. I'm Facebook friends with one of the people in the movie. I can't think of his name right now.
Oh, that's cool.
You know the guy who owns the gun shop?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy. So there you go. He lives in Minnesota, yeah.
Nice.
So random zombie connection, just, throwing that out there. That's my claim to fame.
You make zombie films, and a zombie story. Like, I think you're more of the claim to fame.
Oh, yeah, he's friends with the guy who made Zomedy.
Zomedy.
Yeah.
But you also have Northport, which has elements of zombies, right?
Well, yeah, what are zombies really if not just like mindless predators? They're like the anthropomorphization, if that's a word, of viruses, right? Their main goal is to spread and to turn you into one of them and to get you, and they're ceaseless. So I like all those themes, but I like doing what Ashley was talking about, like figuring out all the science behind it so that it's bulletproof. So there's the bulletproof zombies, so to speak, in my book, Northport, yeah.
That's even more terrifying. Okay, so he just defined zombies. So then my question is, are zombies real? Have we seen zombies?
Well, that goes back into past stuff, which I'm sure Lila's got some stuff on. And I know she does, actually, because she's looking it up right now.
I have to Google.
Us the Google.
Somebody answer while I look stuff up. That way I can.
Well, okay, I'm not going to exactly answer, but I am going to I feel that this will be a missed opportunity if I don't bring up. Anybody remember the whole bath salts debacle back in the early 2000s?
Yes.
With the people in Florida biting people's faces? Yeah. There's some real zombies for you. Maybe.
People thought that was how it was going to be.
I thought that's how it was going to start. I half-ass got ready for it, but not really at the same time.
Started digging in the backyard for the bunker.
Yep.
Well, I think the answer that Ashley's going to head towards I think David Attenborough is probably where she, probably who told her a bit about, well, he's who told me about real zombies. If we're going to dive into the cordyceps fungus, yes?
Yep, the spores.
Hmm.
So we've seen zombies into other animals and plants. It's not just animals that get infected. So zombie ants, as he was saying, the cordyceps, there are over 200 types of this, like fungi spores. But there's one that specifically affects carpenter ants, which are in North America. And what they found is that the spores release and the ants get infected by these spores and takes over essentially their body functions. So as we were talking about earlier, this notion that these parasites, it's like the ultimate survival instinct is to spread to thrive. So it takes over these ants' bodies, and these ants essentially try to find ways to climb higher and higher so that they release these spores out and gets a wider range of area so that more ants get, infected by this and then spread it. And they keep doing the same thing. They climb higher and higher and higher. They go away from their colony behavior, only to go up here on these higher elevated areas and die. It's very sad, actually. But what's interesting is that once they've reached a level of elevation that is acceptable, I guess, for this infection, they clamp onto like whatever they're on. Usually it's a leaf. They track that like the parasite causes the ant's jaws to essentially dislocate and then bite into this plant. So it's like a forced bite and then lock. So it just, their mouth stays locked, and that's where they stay until they die. And then the spores spread and other ants pick it up. That's very zombie-like, if you ask me. Other than the eating. We're going original zombie, not Romero zombie.
Yeah, well, it's logic. So it's not zombies that go and destroy other living creatures. They want to spread it. And they, people have taken this idea and applied it to humans, and huge video game franchise turned into a TV show coming soon.
I was actually going to talk about that later on, too. Love that.
You probably know more than I do.
I am so excited for The Last of Us. I can't even. But yeah, going back to like the real world examples, ants are a great one. And I remember actually learning about that in school while I was studying, in some of my zoology classes. So we've got parasitic, well, not parasitic, but yeah, technically, I guess. Ants, there's wasps as well. So wasps can infect spiders with toxins, and then these spiders are creating these weird web patterns, things like that. So it's seen fairly often in the animal kingdom, where you could say that these are like zombie quote-unquote species, because their behavior is not typical. They're displaying, these unusual behaviors, like the ants climbing up higher and higher and things like that. So if you're asking if zombies are real, absolutely they are. If we're asking if they've reached humans yet, I think that's a bit of a trickier question.
Yeah, but isn't the fundamental thing about zombies 100% of all the zombies, and starting at Jesus Cristo all the way to Romero, the reanimation part? Doesn't death, the end of life, and then your flesh, your matter is reanimated, whether by a parasite or by, a chemical leak or whatever the story is? Doesn't death have to be the thing that happens first?
No.
Not necessarily, no.
Because I don't think we've even seen that in the zombie movies, where like it's a consistent thing where they truly die. We've seen even in Dawn of the Dead, where they're in the shopping mall, where it's like it takes over, and it's like it seems like they're dying, but they're not really dying. It just kind of takes over their face, and they're kind of fighting that infection. I don't think death is necessarily it. I think it's reanimation in a way, or animation in a way where the host is no longer in control.
I've heard Quentin Tarantino talk about the breakdown, the two dividing lines. One is if it has to be the reanimated corpse. That's like the one school of thought. And then there's, you just pointed out, I think, where it changed, kind of like the Snyder area, where it started to just be a sickness, and they could be dead and then come back, or if they get bitten while they're alive, it just takes over. Right. So kind of like a vampire thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so under that definition, then for sure the cordyceps turn those ants into zombies. So that definitely fits. And I think one of the crazy things is the way the ants, they can sense when another ant is infected with this cordyceps fungus, and the like guard ants, the big ones, go and they will escort this sick ant far away, and they'll like kill it, bite it in half or whatever, and then they'll kill themselves.
Oh, wow.
To not bring it back because they're infected. So it's like, ants are crazy, like the hive mind protecting themselves from the zombie onslaught.
The zombie onslaught. I mean, we see people do that to an extent in war, right? They risk their lives for the greater or whatever cause that they're fighting for. Sacrificing the few for the overall good of the many. We see that. What about reanimated viruses? Wouldn't that be at a base level if we're talking about, reanimation being one school of thought? Reanimated viruses at a viral level, it's still a living organism that dies, but because it's preserved at a frozen temperature, it's technically not alive, it's not breathing, it's not functioning, it's not operating. And then when it thaws out, everything starts to resume functionally. So would that be considered reanimation in the zombie number one school of thought?
Well, Lila would probably know more about this, but the idea that there's microorganisms deep down in the earth and viruses, like when they go and the deepest mines ever have these microorganisms, and they pull them out, and they come out of what some scientists call like semi-animation or whatever. They're like in stasis, but are they really dead? I don't know the answer to that, but like so what do you think, Lila? Zoologist extraordinary.
So if we're talking viruses, technically viruses aren't living creatures. They're not living things. Yes, they have chemical structures that make up what they are, but they're not technically living. So if we're talking about... Sorry, I'm trying to find a good way to phrase this. So if we're talking about like the virus passing on, that's not technically alive, but...
I think science even argues back and forth whether viruses are alive or not, because viruses themselves cannot replicate. It needs a host to do it, but...
That's what it is. Yes, sorry, that's what I was looking for. Yes, so viruses, they're not technically living because they have to rely on another organism in order to keep going, in order to replicate, in order to multiply. They can't do that on their own, and because they can't, they're not technically living. That's what it was. Thank you, Ashley.
So then I volley that back to you, Bodhi, with the zombie ants. If they're taken over by a virus or a parasite of some sort, are they still alive?
Well, it's a foreign entity inside the ant's brain or whatever, a parasite. Cordyceps fungus, is very much alive. Because all fungus is been classified as life, right? It's just from that angle. But so it's something living that enters the ant's brain and then uses its body in a very rudimentary way. That's why it looks so weird, just climbing up and up and up and just biting. Kind of the equivalent of like a zombie, shambolic brains. So I don't think it dies until, it maybe dies of starvation or whatever, but then this fungus erupts from its head, and of course the ant is no longer alive, but then you've got this fungal spore popping out, or fungal bloom, so to speak. So it's kind of a symbiotic... It's not symbiotic. It's a parasitic life, and one person gets the short end of the stick and eventually dies.
I think that's how we see a lot of zombies, though, right? That's how you explain, like, how are they dead on or, why are some dead on the floor, or how we're able to kill them. I think to some extent the host is still alive, but they're decomposing and wasting away as the host's body isn't getting what it would typically need to stay alive, like water and sleep and nutrients, and they're just eating brains for the sake of the virus or the infection or whatever we want to call it, until it eventually reaches have we ever seen a zombie walking around that's just straight a skeleton? Like, at some point they decompose to the point of done.
It's all in the rules. Like, it's what's your mythology. So some zombie stories say that the reanimated corpse never dies forever, alive or whatever. But then there's 28 days later, where in the end of the movie, this like emaciated zombie just like falls and dies because it's starved. Mm-hmm. So to your point, that could be a parasite in the brain, and the body doesn't keep on going. But we've never seen a zombie drink water, and the human body does not do well without water. So most zombies would be dead in like 10 days or whatever. So we got to get this straight, guys. Like, we got to make the perfect zombie.
I think it depends what's causing the zombification. What is it? Is it a parasite? Is it a virus? Is it a supernatural, asteroid that came and hit the earth and reanimated all these dead bodies? Like, what is causing the zombies? And then I think you can create the world's bulletproof once you know what the parasite is, or what the zombification agent is. Agent of zombification.
There you go. Yeah, because I feel like when we were talking about those real world examples, yes, there are these different fungi and different spores that can cause zombification, if that's what you want to call it. But then there's also toxins and chemical releases. So these different agents are going to have different quote-unquote rules on what they can do and what they can, how they can control the body. Like, I don't remember exactly the species, so bear with me here, but I remember learning about this type of worm that goes in and infects mammalian hosts and then will drown the host. So the host will go into water and drown itself, and then the worm will come out and find a new host and infect it. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what the name of this species is, but that's a real thing that happens, and that's terrifying, and that's disgusting, but also what's the motive here? You know?
I'm not going to sleep very well tonight now, thank you.
But isn't that so cool?
It is. I remember.
It's so cool!
I remember you telling me about that.
I know, but it's also like that's how it lives, is it goes into these hosts and then wears the host down until it can't use that body anymore. So it finds a way to get rid of it so it can continue on. That's terrifying, but that is also so fascinating that that's an actual thing that happens.
Succubus
Who
worm.
needs urban legends and cryptids when you've got
have worms?
real stuff like this?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
just zombies,
People
not just
drowning
worms.
worms.
Zombies are the perfect thing for all of us to like. We think about how does it work, and in our own minds we make it real, and that's why all the stories are so vague usually about like how it happens. But I was just thinking, like John said, what if we, like, following on what John said but making it utterly diabolical, what if we weaponized, what's called spice and these chemical analogs that they keep making, and like rained it down over the world or whatever, over a country,
Right.
dirty bombed with spice and turned everybody into face-biting, brainless
Yes.
maniacs.
I'm sure there's some movies out there.
I was gonna say, you actually
indie
just sparked-
films about that.
You just sparked something in Lila. She's Googling something again.
Oh, it wasn't mammals. I'm pretty sure it was insects. I'm just fact-checking myself on that so I don't look like a fool.
You know what's really, I think why it gets to me so much is because to an extent, a level of zombie makes sense. Not in the sense that we see in the movies, but like, for example, okay, so we have chronic wasting disease, right? In Colorado and a lot of the neighboring states with the deer. It mimics the zombie symptoms. So it incubates in the deer for like about a year. But once the symptoms show, they waste away. They start stumbling around. They have neurological issues. They have listlessness. All sorts of things. And last year it was spreading like crazy. So like states were shutting down their borders for deer. Like they had people checking for deer crossing and they'd take them out because it was spreading through the deer population like crazy. And I think the only state, I might be wrong, I think the only state that was able to prevent it going into their state was Arizona, I think, because they had like, they just took out every deer that tried to like come in through. I don't know how they managed that, but like it was a big problem. And the thing is a lot of people hunt and eat deer and, the jury's still out. They're like, well, it's not possible for humans to get it by consuming the deer, but we're not 100% sure. So just don't eat it, or just don't, get your deer checked if you hunted in those states for this chronic wasting disease before you eat it. And it's like, well, if it can't hurt us, why does it matter? But think about that. If humans got chronic wasting disease and we're showing those symptoms, like that sounds like a hella zombie. And the funny part about that is like how it spreads through the other animals, like to other non-deer animals, is actually by consuming the brain. So it's a disease that actually exists in it originates in the brain of these deer.
Uh-oh, we got mad deer disease.
Goodness.
All you got to do is start a movie like chronic wasting disease was taking over the deer population in half of the United States. People thought that it couldn't be spread to humans, ... Movie started. That's all the information
Boom.
we need. I believe it. I'm in. Zombies.
28 days later. And again, it's not deer eating deer, people eating people, but still, like, those are zombie, like, symptoms. Classic zombie symptoms.
Yes.
Going back to my last example, I figured out what it was. So the host is not mammalian. It actually is insects. It's the horsehair worm, which is a nematode. The worm larva pretty much is inside of the insect. And so when the larva becomes an actual worm, is when the host starts experiencing, I guess you could say, quote unquote, zombie-like behavior where it's not in control of itself. And because these worms need damp conditions, they need wet conditions, that's why they drown their host. So crickets and other insects, crickets is just the one that I was reading up on. So the worm will pretty much mind control these insects to go drown themselves so the worm can escape and be free.
Still scary.
So I wanted to fact check on myself on that, and I did it.
I mean,
and I know we moved on, but I came back to it.
That's scary, though, because you think of how many people, in other countries eat insects. So what if they're eating the insects that have this freaking worm inside of them? Like, it's a possibility that it could happen, and I don't know.
But guys, think about that. That's terrifying. We talk about the ants.
It's so cool.
And the spiders and the worms and these are all different parasites that are coming into a host, like with the brain and with like survival instincts. And survival instincts in biology, that's a hell of a thing to overcome, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's inherently like built into all of us, whether we're a virus or, although that's not alive, or is it? Science is still out on that one.
Yeah.
It's not alive, but its behavior is very much like it's got a process to it to keep thriving. So it's kind of hard to, with the survival thing kind of debate. Well, it's got to be alive, quote unquote, to some extent if it's got survival instincts built into it to spread and keep thriving. But whatever. I'm off topic. Back in. I'll plug myself back in. But like to overcome biology and overcome like this survival instinct and this innate need to survive and thrive built into whether it's an ant or a cow or a reindeer or whatever, to come in and take over these things so much that they lose their willpower. They no longer have zero control over their bodies, and now they're going to completely do something they've not built to do. They're not meant to do. So whether it's the ants going up and committing suicide to spread, spores, or whether it's spiders creating cocoons for these wasps to live in and then fly free. Like, they're doing things they're not built to do and not meant to do. So this is pretty strong to come in and take over. Or like Lila, you were saying, having these things commit suicide when our innate behavior in all creatures is to live and propagate in some way for survival of the species. Yay, Darwin. So that's terrifying. You wonder why I'm scared of this.
Science is so cool. It's terrifying, but it's also so interesting to see, like, we are used to seeing zombies in this horror aspect in pulp culture, in films, in literature, things like that. But this is actually a thing that we can see happening in real life. But because we don't necessarily care about ants, because we don't care about spiders, we're not totally aware of what's going on around us. But these things are happening. That's so cool. And so scary.
So coolly terrifying. Yeah, no, I'm convinced. I got to start prepping. So the question is it a bunker or is it a watchtower? What's your preference?
Watchtower.
Get the altitude, see what's coming. Okay.
Watchtower with the zip line.
Yeah, there you go. Gotta have a zip line. Easy out, just in case.
Because if you're in a bunker, you're stuck. You're like completely cornered. So all you have is a door to hopefully protect you. But if they're in, where do you go? With the watchtower, if you build in a zip line, you at least buy yourself time.
I like that.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that.
See, I was originally going to say bunker, but Ashley brings up a very good point. Plus, I don't think that I could go without seeing sunlight for the rest of my life.
I am highly claustrophobic, so I feel like I'd offer myself up to the zombies if I had to live in a bunker for like the rest of my life. I'm like, fine, just bite me. Just like, here, can you bite my finger?
If you do that, then I'm doubly screwed because A, I'm claustrophobic, and B, I'm afraid of heights too. But at the same time, like, if I'm gonna have to live, then yeah, I'm definitely sticking with the watchtower for sure.
Okay, weapon of choice. to protect yourself against zombies. Weapon of choice.
Are we going with a gun with limited bullets, or are we going with a bow and arrow where you try to make sure you don't break that arrow?
Right.
Make sure you don't run out of arrows.
Well, you can always go and retrieve it, right?
Plenty of trees too. You can always make more.
Which is also very The Last of Us.
Have you ever tried to make an arrow?
No, I've tried to shoot one and I'm not very good.
I've broken a few.
He's like, well, you can make more. How long does that take? From the point you remove it and whittle it.
All it's got to do is go through her head, and you're good.
Depending what the rules are.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I feel like I would have to make a contraption. So it would have to be probably some kind of like crossbow, but with like some kind of sword or sharp projectile,
melee
like
on there.
bayonet, like a bayonet style thing. Just like stab them if I'm out of arrows.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, good old axe. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, I got to go back to The Walking Dead. Negan with his baseball bat with the barbed wire. That'd be gross, but give me one of those, and yeah.
What was its name again?
Lucille.
Lucille, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to get stuck in your enemy and have to. Plus, baseball bats splinter, break apart if you really go home run on them. So
yes.
He's like, you go home run. Oh man, I feel like you'd have to go some. You'd have to hit a human pretty hard to break your bat. I don't know if I could hit someone enough to break a bat, like hard enough.
I guess this gets to one of the things about zombie movies, which is why it's so popular, is this vicarious need to dehumanize a human and like break them apart with baseball bats and shoot them. And what's wrong with us, humanity?
That's the other thing. You've never seen a zombie that looks just like a human. They have to be monstrous in some way because people can't take the idea of this crazy violence on like just a standard looking human. It's like we got to make them look like a monster so people feel okay with the violence and gore that's going to ensue against these zombies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why you don't typically see children zombies as often.
Right.
It's hard to, even with them looking like monsters, it's hard for people to stomach like a child being, completely brutalized. So
yeah.
Wow. Well, happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Now, did you know humans, we have things. People come, they've claimed that other people are zombies. So researchers have actually gone to go see what these claims are. I don't think they're going in let's find zombies, more so let's show these people why these are not zombies. But the one thing I found really interesting is similar to what we've talked about before in other episodes, that a lot of these things can be explained by psychological conditions. So we talked about the incubus and the succubi and how that might be, psychological based, and demon possessions, right? Well, human zombies, a lot of the cases that they've researched, they found that it can be attributed to one of three categories. And the first one is catatonic schizophrenia, type of schizophrenic behavior where people really do walk around in a catatonic stupor kind of state. And I'm like, yeah, okay, zombie, got it. They also see it in people that have suffered brain damage from epilepsy. So epilepsy is already a neurological condition, and then you pair that with the brain damage. Okay, again, walking zombie, got it. And then they also said there's something called Cotard's syndrome. Have you guys ever heard of that?
I have not.
No.
I have studied a lot of different conditions, and this was the first time I'd ever heard of anything like this. So Cotard's syndrome, it's rare, but it's this syndrome where people are under the delusion that they are dead or they're decomposing. So they're walking and talking, but they firmly believe they're dead or that they're already decomposing. And there are people that have asked, they've gone to the morgue and asked to be just autopsied and done away with because they think they're dying.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Or they think, I shouldn't say that they think they're dying. They think they're dead and already decomposing.
Well, that's another one for the nightmare bucket. Throw that in there.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So again, mental condition, but where do you think that comes from? To think that you're walking and talking, but I'm dead, guys. Or I'm decomposing. One guy, I guess, had called and asked for help because he said he could smell his flesh rotting.
Huh.
And it's what?
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah, it's crazy. On the flip side, there's solipsism, the belief that you're the only person that matters, and sort of the idea behind ideological or philosophical zombies, like the rest of the world are fake. Some people suffer from the delusion that we're in like the Matrix or whatever. Yes. So everybody is just a simulation, and so you can do whatever you want to them. You can kill them. You're the only human that matters. You're the only one that's real. So that's like the flip side, and they call what people perceive other people who are solipsistic, what they perceive other people to be is like an ideological zombie.
Oh.
Hey man, in some ways it's more real than we'd like to think.
All right, so this has been awesome and terrifying. To wrap it up, let's go. I know we've already kind of touched on it, but wrapping it up. Favorite zombie movies? Top 3 at the most.
Shaun of the Dead, The Dawn of the Dead, and Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ.
Terrifying, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Delivers. It's gory, goriest one on the list.
It really is.
And the guy comes back from dead, so.
Yeah.
I've heard it has hilarious outtakes, too. All right.
Lila, you go next.
I know that we talk about this movie a lot, but any excuse I can bring it up, I will. It's going to be Anna and the Apocalypse, because I love the combination of horror, comedy, and music. That's a winning trio to me. I love it.
Beautiful.
Any others?
That's the one that sticks
That's all
out.
three in one.
I
Yeah.
like zombie movies. I really do, but I'm making myself pick one.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Gotcha.
Stand in it.
Yeah. I definitely have to choose that one as well. I will not shut up about it. I know it is, like 3-4 years old now,
It's 3.
but I will not shut up about it. It was surprisingly amazing, and I recommend it to anybody who wants to watch it just to check it out. The remake of Dawn of the Dead was another favorite of mine, and yeah, I mean, you kind of have to have Shaun of the Dead because it's just absolutely hilarious and amazing. Those are my 3.
Ashley, if you had to choose, I know you don't want to.
I do love Land of the Dead. I think it's underrated and such a well done movie. I totally like Disney zombies. I don't know if you guys have seen that. They actually do have a zombie movie, by the way. It's a musical, and
Yep, that's the one I was telling you needed to watch.
Cheerleader in love with a zombie boy. It's fun. It knows how to make fun of itself. It has really fun puns in it. So I watched it with the kids, and I actually kind of liked it. I did enjoy Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
That was good.
Mm-hmm. That was fun because I'm a fan of Pride and Prejudice in general, and then putting that in a world of zombies, that was fun. It was well done, so I thought that was fun. But I'd like to throw out my number 1 nod. I love Resident Evil. I will always be a fan of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Good fun.
Yes.
all good fun.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't love Nemesis?
Good family movie.
Right.
Good family movie. Well, this has been fun. Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, gang. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to shout out to Bodhi?
Yeah, well, I'm here again in an investigative capacity for my writing. My book, Northport 1999, is currently early access, exclusively available on Patreon. The 3rd segment's coming out in January. You can get that at patreon.com/Bodhi the Movie Maker. It's a book with lots of illustrations and art, and if you're into scary, spooky things and sci-fi, then come check us out.
Yeah, I got my cool sticker in the mail with my card listed to the Blood Baroness. I love it. Very exciting.
I'm very happy that Ashley Lunar Goddess is one of the founding members. She's been there since the beginning helping with this project, and she's got her code name. She's in it. You guys got to come check it out and see, get your code name like Ashley and see what she's up to.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Thank you. All right, Lila, bring us home.
Thank you so much again to Bodhi for joining us on this episode of 3Haunted Podcast. I'm your guest host, Lila Kay.
I'm John Thomas.
And I am Ashley, the Lunar Goddess.
If you have any questions, episode suggestions, or comments, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media so you don't miss one moment. We'll see you in the next one, MetaPals.
Until next time.